Okay, so what I think we'd like to talk about now is why use recommended databases provided by the library. At this point, it's really useful to consider what sources of information you have used in your research and explain to yourself why these sources of information are relevant for your research. So jot down a couple of resources and how you've used them effectively to support your research, or how you've made a case or used an argument in your assignment and how you've bolstered it with evidence provided by the data you've used or the resources you've used. And this is a really useful thing to bear in mind ahead of us looking at the sort of resources that we'll be using for innovation and entrepreneurship, because you've all had a chance to use resources of that nature. For example, look up an article on JSTOR or look up a book chapter on maybe Project Muse. But today we're focusing on innovation and entrepreneurship.
And I just say one of the kind of the challenges and one of the kind of the benefits of innovation is that we do have to consider breadth of resources, and we also have to consider we have to present them across disciplines as well. And some disciplines use certain sources in certain ways, other disciplines use them in other ways. So I think what's really important here is what we're saying is underneath all of that, no matter what we're looking at, these are the two really key questions here.
Great, thanks, Keir. And as Keir said, we can't all be experts across various disciplines, but we can have the high level appropriate information relating to all those disciplines at our fingertips and the methodologies, and that's why it's really helpful. So what I will do now is I will just show you briefly the breadth of the sort of resources that are useful for innovation and entrepreneurship that Keir and I have found are relevant to a lot of your projects and your assignments. You will find that we have interdisciplinary research bases like Web of Science, which is an absolutely superb one. It's a misnomer describing it as Web of Science. It's a very misleading title. It covers the arts, the humanities, all the sciences. Then we have Business Source Complete and Mintel, which are superb resources for really borrowing down and understanding, finding reports and articles for the industries, for economic reports, for business and anything. If you're trying to design a product or looking at a market or looking at customer responses, that's where you'd find all that rich information. Then, of course, there are other resources. For example, you might want to use a film or a snippet of a film or a documentary. And we have Box of Broadcasts and Canopy, which are really brilliant in that regard. And again, you can find all of these with links through the Innovation and Entrepreneurship subject guide.
And just briefly on the Canopy and Box of Broadcast, it also means you can watch lots of independent films. I mean, film students will know about these, but any broadcast TV that's been on Freeview for the last sort of 20 years, and you can request things. So, you know, it's a great resource in more ways than one, I think.
Absolutely. Any film that was ever broadcast on BBC or ITV or any you can see. Any mainstream or any documentary or anything like that. Absolutely. You can cut snippets and use examples of things if you're trying to make a point about something and embed it in one of your presentations when you're doing group work, all of that. The other thing that's really useful, especially because you're very much keeping the pulse of world affairs, economic trends, is we have a superb coverage of newspapers, including the Financial Times. It's for you to use throughout your whole studies. And there's a link there which you can find in order to log on and register for the Financial Times. We have this superb resource which helps you with research methods, which we will be demonstrating in a different section. And also, if you want to look at ordnance survey maps, you can do that. You can do aerial views of subjects, of areas you're interested to study. So that's a really nice snapshot of the range of things we have.
So just on the Digimaps as well, it's funny, I've just been playing around with it. You can get LiDAR data on there as well, marine data. You can get I know nothing about what I'm actually doing, and I'm using it for an art project, but the sheer volume of useful information in there, from sizes of buildings to road layouts to paths to electric lines, you know, it's so invaluable. And you pay so much money for this when you come out of university to access these kind of resources.
Exactly. And again, if anybody needs support with the use of any of these, just let me know and I can help. Now, the main thing to bear in mind is that you're already familiar with finding resources that are on prescribed resource lists or connected to essay topics. But as you advance in your learning, you're just not looking for known books and articles from resource lists. You're looking for your own materials. So there's an element of discovery in your work, and that can be a really rewarding experience because you are a researcher when you do that. Now, anything that serves your purpose is brilliant. Wikipedia, Google, they're absolutely great for background reading and at the start of your research. And we all know how easy Google is. It's fast, it's easy, it gives you very often the information you need. However, with Google, you can come up with a huge number of results and they can have varying quality. And of course, not all of them are relevant. You can have millions of results. Or the other thing that can happen is you can reach a dead end because you can't access the full text of a really interesting article that you find on Google. And the other thing to bear in mind is that there are also factors like advertising, promotion, personalization, and these influence the order and the relevance of your results. And the websites it finds are not always quality controlled. So what I would say is use everything at your disposal, but use your judgment and bear in mind the bias. Google Scholar is very good at the start of your research, and throughout your research, it's really good because you can see where a book or an article has been used by other scholars once it's been published. So it has great strengths. But your tutors do want you to demonstrate that you've gone beyond these resources to research your topic and to prove your capability to be a researcher. So what you're really looking for is you're looking for relevant and reliable information, and this is where the library comes in. The library has resources that save you time and give you focus in your research. So just a couple of little slides just to kind of reinforce what I've been saying. So why are subject databases good for your research? They're subject-specific databases, so they're tailored to your specific discipline. And what's really important about these is they contain the most current research in journals before that research appears in books. Secondly, some databases are multidisciplinary, like Web of Science. These interdisciplinary databases are excellent, not only for finding materials for your specific discipline, but they're brilliant, as Keir has been saying, for finding materials when your topic is interdisciplinary or when you want to see how a topic has been scoped in several disciplines and across them. And finally, what's really important about them is the content. It's broad in outlook. It's chosen to represent diverse viewpoints, diverse geographies, diverse voices. So unlike Google, these databases won't choose results based on our personal preferences or on bias from previous searches. And also with subject databases, we can all replicate the same results, and that's really important when you're working as a team together, and then evaluate and scrutinize those results. Whereas in Google, different people do different searches and they have different outcomes. So it's worth bearing those things in mind. So what I would say is that library search is an actual database. It's quite a simple database. It's not a very sophisticated database search engine, but it is your first choice for finding materials. And that's where you'll find full text materials for everything that we subscribe to and pay to as a library. So I always recommend making a start for this for books and articles. Today, we're going to be looking at two searches. We're going to be doing a search both on library search and on Business Source Complete.